it's a blessing to have men that you're surrounded by, that ultimately just, it doesn't matter. They know you're broken.
Yep.
They know they're broken.
Yep.
And they know that without Jesus,
Yep.
boy, it gets real broken.
It gets bad.
It gets real bad. Welcome back to the Uncomfortable Truth. We're here again with our buddy Chris Gordy in our second session with him, and we're going to dig deeper into just some uncomfortable truths about just our walks with Jesus and our lives, and just the uncomfortableness that we go through in living this life on earth. That's the reason that we thought of that name for the podcast, is because the uncomfortable moments are really the ones that are worth sharing,
and where you see growth.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Real quick story about Chris, which completely unrelated to what we're going to be talking about, but I just was thinking about it on my way here, and I was thinking about, and I don't know how much Chris remembers about this, but he and I rode down to a deer lease down in South Texas together one time, and it was a 6-hour drive, and it was just me and Chris sitting in the car talking. It was kind of the first time we really kind of got to know each other a little bit. And man, I remember a lot from that drive. And it's funny how some things stick with you.
It was a good time.
It was a good time. And it's funny, the things that you remember, and I think you remember these things because they continue to be really relatable throughout life. But that was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that was 10 years ago, but that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
I was living on Page Road. We had Addison was 2 years old, and we were living at not on Page Road. We were living on Michelle Drive, 109 Michelle Drive, and it was at the time when I had been applying for some management jobs, and I'd been looking to promote within the company that I was in. And
that you're still in.
Still with. And anyway, I just remember Chris telling me that you're gonna get this promotion. Just keep at it. It's gonna happen. I know it's gonna happen. And he was like, if I had one thing to tell you, he was like, you're gonna start making more money. He was like, and what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to go out and spend that extra money that you're making. And I was like, yeah. He's like, you got a great house right now. He said, make sure that when you start making more money, you don't sell that house. He said, don't sell the house that you're in. Stay in it. And he was like, you're gonna look back in 10 years. He was like, and you're gonna be so thankful that you didn't go build that big, $1 million mansion or that big nice house that you thought you were gonna, get whenever your ship comes in.
Yeah.
And anyway, 10 years later, got the promotion.
You have.
Sold the house.
No, but the promotion wasn't 10 years later.
No.
It was
Right then.
Yeah, it was very close to right after Chris was trying to speak some wisdom into me. It might not have been 6 months, and there was a for sale sign in the front yard.
Good deal. You did good to not follow my advice.
way to heed wisdom.
No, we haven't got to the punchline yet. So move into the nicer home, wind up, living in it for 5 years, selling it and building another home, living in it now. And my wife and I, on at least every quarter to half a year, think, can you imagine what life would look like if we would have just stayed in that 109 Michelle Drive?
Okay.
It would be paid for.
Oh, yeah.
We wouldn't have any debt.
Oh, yeah.
There would be money in the bank.
Oh, yeah.
And from a financial freedom standpoint,
Oh, yeah.
it would look, and I'm like,
That was Dave Ramsey speaking.
Chris Gordy knew what he was saying 10 years ago. And I'm like, man, if I just would have listened to Chris.
Yeah.
And so,
maybe
anyway.
the only time ever. that was a good trip all the way around, man. We got
That's awesome.
Talk to a lot of brothers. And
The only thing I remember from that trip is Chris shooting targets with his bow from 100 yards away.
I remember that
And
too.
I remember thinking, wow.
I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, well, he just laid down an elk from like 87 yards a few days ago. So
Yeah,
I think he still got it.
I do.
Dude.
I do.
Yeah.
It's
Stud.
awesome. Yeah.
Stud with a bow.
It is good.
Well, we're gonna jump back into some uncomfortable truth questions. I know Sean's got another one he wants to throw at Chris. So, Sean, what you got?
Well, this is quick and easy, and this is just a hypothetical, but I don't even know if you even drink coffee, but let's just say you woke up at 5 a.m. this morning and you walk into the kitchen and you're making a cup of coffee and you look over there and Jesus is sitting at the island there in your kitchen on a bar stool. And you're sitting there, and you're like, totally in shock.
I would be in shock. Rapture.
And you're sitting down with Jesus face to face. What is one question you would ask him?
Oh, man. It just popped in my head. I don't know if it's cliche or what, but dude, why do you love me so much? It rocks my world to see how much he loves me and every one of us. I know I'm not worthy, but I just can't understand how much he loves me and how much I can just keep coming back saying, man, I'm sorry, I messed up. And he just opens his arms up and says, I love you. Come here and give me a hug. I can feel it a little bit with the way that I love my kids, the way that I love my wife, and the way that I love our employees. But with myself, I have a hard time accepting grace, or I have a hard time accepting somebody buying my dinner or anything towards me. So I guess I have a hard time with that. But, man, just to think how much he loves me and the price that he's paid and the debt that he's paid for me. And I have a hard time dealing with that.
Yeah.
And I'd love for him to tell me. He'd just say, "Oh, no big deal. I just love you." And I'm
Just to be able to rationalize the understanding of that unconditional love.
I cannot get my mind around it. Just every day, every week, every time I read, every time I pray, I'm just like, "Is this real?"
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I just can't grasp it. And I hope I never do. I'm going to get to see him, and I'm going to see his glory, and I'm going to know. But this side of heaven, I hope I don't get comfortable. I hope I don't get comfortable with the thought that he loves me and that he paid my debt. And he does it. He did it for my wife. Thankful for that. He's done it for my kids. And I hope I don't get comfortable with it. Yeah.
That's good. That's a great question.
It's a great answer. It's a great answer.
Something that you said in there, it made me think. You said that you had you struggle with, somebody paying for your dinner, or somebody being generous to you or your family or something like that. You're one of the most generous people I've ever met. You bought my family's dinner a few months ago, and we didn't know who bought our dinner. And so, what do you think that is? Like, why is it that you love to be generous and you love to do things for people and love on people and be the hands and feet of Jesus, so to speak? But when it comes to flipping that on its script, you struggle with that. What do you think?
I think, I do. I struggle with it, and it's like sinfully struggling with it. Like people, I won't let nobody. Last night I jumped up, went to dinner with some guys, and I jumped up and followed the lady to the checkout thing with my card because the guy was trying to get his card out, and she was like, "Okay," and I feel guilty. I think it's guilt that no, I don't deserve that. I don't deserve that. I don't deserve that. Unfortunately, here on earth, I get to go like, no, I got it. No, I got it. And Jesus is like, there's no stepping up to the cash register.
Yeah.
There's no getting on the cross. I got it. Like, Chris, I'm the only one I can say, you're not enough.
Right.
Keep your credit card, keep your cash, keep it, keep your time. You have no resources, and I have a lot of resources. You have no resources good enough for this, but good thing because I got it.
Yeah.
And it's the only debt that I can't pay. I could pay your debt. I could just pay debts, but I can't pay that debt. And it compels me to want to be generous and want to love people and want to give and want to serve because of the abundant love and service and generosity that he's given towards me and my family and the people that I love. He just pours it out.
That's awesome.
I can't even pay it back, but it feels like maybe I'm trying.
Right.
But
I have a
super thankful.
Another friend here that is Shane is our he's our radio. He's our tech.
He's the tech.
He's the father of our podcast, so to speak.
Besides Rich over here.
Yeah, him and Rich, they really keep this thing going. Sean and I are like trying to keep them.
Pretend.
We're pulling them down, you know. and Shane's wife Courtney, she's awesome, and I have always been a lot like you, and up until the last couple years. And the reason that I feel like I've been able to pull it back a little bit is because of something that Courtney said to me one time. And because every time it's like, no, we got it. You know, I'm jumping up to go to the bathroom, you know, and anyway, something came up, and I don't know. We do taco night with them a lot, and I don't know what it was, but she knew that I was about to go do it, and she did it, and I didn't know. She went and paid, and she was like, she said, "Don't steal my blessing."
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Don't steal my blessing," and I was like, and it just came. It hit me, you know, and I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot to say about the willingness to receive.
Yes.
I have a hard time with it. My wife tells me that, and then that it makes me go. When somebody says, "Don't steal my blessing," I'm like, "Oh, oh."
Exactly. You're right. There's. Have you ever heard of the book The Go-Giver?
No, sorry.
It's a little book that. It's just a little story that you know, the author, his name's Bob Berg, and it's what he does is he outlines these 5 laws of what he calls stratospheric success, and it's not. I feel like that almost every law is very
in line with the Bible.
But it's not written in
from a Christian perspective.
That's correct. But I feel like almost all of these laws of stratospheric success, I don't feel like it's any coincidence that this guy that might not be a Christian is seeing success by implementing all of the things that Jesus says to do.
Hello.
and the first law is the law of value. And it says, you know, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. And that makes me think of Chris Gordy. It makes me think of Chris Gordy. And the law of influence is another law, and it says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interest ahead of your own.
Yeah.
Does that sound biblical?
Yeah.
It sounds biblical, and it makes me think of Chris Gordy. And I feel like that, Chris, these laws of stratospheric success. You know, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests ahead of your own. The law of authenticity. The most valuable gift you have to offer is you. That's
your authentic self.
That's right.
Yeah.
And man, like I just want to thank you for being a godly influence on my life and showing me that being the hands and feet of Jesus, not only does it lead to you having a positive impact for the kingdom of Jesus, but it leads to generational impacts. It leads to you getting ready to welcome another grandbaby into the world, and knowing that the impact that you had on Chandler and the impact that he's going to have on that baby, and how he's going to point that baby to Jesus with every trial that baby goes through. And he's going to teach him that put yourself second, and put yourself, if you want to have influence, if you want to talk, plant seeds for Christ, put all these people ahead of you, and you do that as well as anybody I feel like I've ever met. I feel like I know the answer to this question, but what would you say is the driving force that wakes you up every day and entices you and motivates you to go live out those laws?
I hope it's not guilt, but it's definitely thankfulness. Like, Christ loved me. Let me go see if I can love or encourage or serve or give any way that I can. I want to be, I guess he's like a life offering for us all. I can't take his place on the cross. I can't pay my debt. I can't exchange lives or whatever. I can live for him. It's the choice I get to choose in these situations with temptation. I get to choose me. That's my choice. In where I get to serve or love or encourage or pick up the tab, simple thing. Those are the choices that I get to make, and I want to bring glory to God. I want to set an example for my son and how he is to lead his wife and love his family. And it's easy. I get up to serve, love, and try to bring glory to God.
Be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
It is. It is the only reason we're here.
It is.
I was just thinking about how, I can't tell you how many times Chris has helped me out of a jam, whether it was getting keys out of a car, coming and picking us up from Terrell or whatever. And for whatever reason, Obie, I think, would have been my first phone call. And I think you were out of town or something. And Chris came and picked up me and my family in Terrell, where we ended up leaving by truck. My dadgum truck broke down. And
was it Will's Point? Terrell?
I think it was Randall Knoll. We just left it there. And anyway, so I'm always like thinking, wow, I feel like I need to pay Chris back somehow, like serve and help him somehow. And
Shaun,
so there's been so many times
go down the list, bro.
There's been so many times whenever, like the other day, for example, Dad and I were cutting firewood. And I had a bunch of firewood, and my firewood racks were loaded down. And I was like, man, you need any firewood? And he was like, no, what do you mean? And I was like, man, I got a truck full of firewood. But I pulled up, he was like, can't you just give this to somebody else? He didn't want to take it, but he needed firewood. Like, his firewood rack was low.
It was.
And
I hated taking that. Every time I walk by it, I feel guilty.
He didn't even want to take it. He was like, man, tell your dad I'm so grateful for this firewood.
How can I pay you back? Oh my gosh, it was awesome.
And anyway, but
super sweet.
It's fun. It's just it's funny to me.
Y'all are the same way. Y'all are the hands and feet of Jesus. Both of y'all. I can tell you stories. Y'all are awesome.
I don't know about that, but I do know that between Chris and our dad, I think we got some pretty good examples in our life, and
that's pretty awesome.
I am truly grateful for that. I am.
It's a blessing to have men that you're surrounded by, that ultimately just it doesn't matter. They know you're broken.
Yep.
They know they're broken.
Yep.
And they know that without Jesus,
yep,
boy, it gets real broken.
It gets bad.
It gets real bad.
Yeah.
And to have men like that in your life, and women like that in your life that are pointing us back to Jesus when we are. I mean, we get so distracted.
Yeah.
There's so many things in this world that are just the devil is intentionally trying to get at us and our kids and our families.
Yeah.
And just having those men, gosh, it's great. That's going to kind of lead me to my last question for you, Chris, is like, who do you feel like has been that person that had the most spiritual impact on your life, and that one person that has just really pointed you back to Jesus more times than not? He's just encouraged you. He's never stopped. He's always there. Who's that guy for you?
They're of course pastors, but I don't want to discount that. Like oh yeah, sure, it was pastors or whatever. But I have two pastor friends that are two of my best friends. Them very much.
What are their names?
Bo Bolding and Bud Miller, very, very, very good men, and both encourage, point me in the right direction, set me straight.
Yeah.
Preach truth, teach truth, live the truth. I love it. And people would say, "Oh yeah, of course, a pastor or whatever." They're flawed and they know it.
Yeah.
And we talk about it. Also, Chandler, young, growing up, impressionable, moldable, don't know nothing, been through a lot of hard times in his life, and he would say, you said growth. He would say, Dad, I said, man, I hate that a dad hates when your kid goes through hard times. He goes through hard times just one after another. He did during a season, and he's like, I wouldn't trade them for nothing because they make me who I am, and without them, I wouldn't be who I am. He walked off a field at a college where he tore his ACL, and we were getting the truck, and I go, and you asked, where do you learn from? And you can learn from children or learn from childlike faith because, we seem to have all the answers and got philosophy and theology and corruption of the world or distraction. And he just, he's just young and innocent of mind at the time, but we get in the truck and I go, Chandler, I think you tore your ACL, and he's a senior going into his senior year, has aspirations of college and, gonna kick butt, and I love football. And I said, he's sitting over there in the passenger seat, and I said, I think you tore your ACL, Chandler. And he's, yeah, Dad, I think I did too. And I'm like, Chandler, I'm sorry. Like, our football dreams just fell and hit the turf, Mm-hmm. And he's like, but, there was, I don't know how many people are out there, 60, 170, whatever, quarterbacks, receivers, D-backs to cover them and all this exercise that was going on. And he said, but that's all right. Out of all the people out there on that field, I'd rather this happen to me than anybody else.
Wow.
Because they may need that, and God's got me. I'm good. And right there, while his knee's torn and we don't even know it yet, and he's just right in the moment, not dang it, I've lost my life, or I'm going to be no good to anybody, or no touchdowns this year. He just
he knew.
It's about this.
He already knew.
Wow.
He immediately, he didn't have to.
At a young age.
Yeah, so you learn from babes, kind of out of the mouths of babes. And just, as he says, one time he told me about our business. We were talking about business and planning and all that stuff. And he said, Dad, how do you have the best customer service if you don't have the best people? And I'm like, well, that's a good point. Wow, okay. And he was probably 10 Like, that's a good point. I need to change my philosophy a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool. Gosh, that's cool.
I got to tell this quick story about Lexi. So Lexi, she goes to Texas A&M, and she is a babysitter down there. And so they have like a babysitting network where the families can choose the babysitter, and they background check the families and the babysitters.
That's
and
cool. Very needed.
they got to get CPR certified, all kinds of cool stuff. And
That's awesome.
Anyway, so she has this family reach out to her the other day, and the entire situation was very awkward. And you talk about like your child inspiring you. Okay, so Lexi is my child that inspires me pretty often.
Yeah.
And because she has that childlike faith, and she goes to this one babysitting job, and what happened was the lady and her husband were both at the house the entire time, and the lady kept telling her that she was testing her, and that was a test, this was a test, and tells her that she's fired three nannies, but if she does a good job, she's going to get a $1,200 bonus next year, and just made Lexi feel really uncomfortable in a bunch of ways. And she calls me and she says, "Dad, I got this thing going on," and she tells me everything. And she was like, "I just feel really awkward, like something doesn't feel right about this environment." And I said, "Well, Lexi, did you pray about it?" She said, "Yeah, I did. That's why I'm calling you." I said, "Okay, so you prayed about it. So what, do you feel like God's..." She said, "Well, that's what I wanted to tell you." So I prayed about it, or whether or not I should stay and continue week in and week out babysitting for this family or not. And I fell asleep on the couch after I prayed, and I had a dream. And in the dream, I walked up to the house, and I knocked on the door, and the lady said, "Come in, come in." And I tried to get in, and the door was locked, and I kept trying to get in. And then I started pounding on the door, and the lady was saying, "Come in, come in," and I couldn't get in, Dad. And then I woke up. I said, "Well, there's your answer to your prayer."
Holy moly.
I said,
Cool.
"Lexi," I said, "that's awesome." I said, "God answered your prayer in a dream." And she said, "You think?" I said, 100%, Lex, 100%. And she was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to text her right now and tell her I'm done."
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
great.
I thought that was pretty cool.
It's amazing how when we are pointing our kids to Jesus, how they can reciprocate that and point us to Jesus.
Yeah.
That's
On
pretty
the
awesome.
question on the influence and who's done all that stuff, pastors, maybe, of course, that's an obvious answer or whatever. Kids, no doubt, and both of my two daughters, absolutely. I just hang on every word they say. But I would be, one, retarded and remiss if I didn't say my wife. God gave them to us as a helpmate.
Yeah.
And I see more and more every day. What's that Brad Paisley song? "I Thought I Loved You Then"?
Yep.
Wow.
It's a good one.
It's wow.
Oh, yeah.
So I think about that, and I think, man, my wife, God's using my wife to mold me into looking like his son every day, all the time. And we call it nagging, or we call it this, or whatever we call it, negative connotation. But man, my wife, I know who I was, and I know all the things my wife has pointed out about me in my life, and I know where I'm at now and all the things that have changed, and all the ways that God has used my wife to mold me, change me. And it may just be her she don't feel right about something, so then I change the way I do it. Or I need to take the trash out without her having to ask me. That's more loving than her having to ask me, or much less argue about it, which is some kind of cliche that people think. When people talk about that, I'm just like, she gotta wait. Y'all are arguing about it. She shouldn't even have to speak it.
Right.
She shouldn't even have to think it. I believe that I once lived to honor God, excluding my wife. I'm going to honor God. And I now know honoring God is only loving my wife. Everything else is secondary. And if I'm not loving my wife, you can forget it. Yeah. God put me here and joined us together to mold me to look like Christ by the way that I love my wife. period.
I love that.
It's good.
Awesome,
that's,
man.
That's real good.
Yeah.
That's real good. Man, thanks so much for coming on the show.
We
appreciate it.
You know, I mean, I feel like that the listeners are going to get a lot. There's not a ton of people out there listening, but we're just speaking to one person.
I'm glad we got to have the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if one person hears it, then that's what we've always said. It's worth it. You know, just like Jesus going after the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and so you know, make a difference in somebody's life. Send somebody, you know, subscribe to the podcast. Send somebody, you know, something encouraging today. You know, point your kids to Jesus. Point your kids to Jesus. You know, your accountability partners. You know, there's an old saying: you're a average of the top 5 people that you surround yourself with. Surround yourself with people that love Jesus. You know, because they're going to help you through those trials and those tribulations that we're inevitably going to go through. So, you know, go out and kick the day in the face. We're going to catch you on the next one, and you know, have a good one, guys. We'll see you.